Have you ever wondered when humans first started to consider and decide who or what is beautiful, handsome, or ugly? Do you think it suddenly came from our instincts as human beings to determine it back then? It's not that simple. Here's the truth. Let's dive in. The idea of defining beauty and ugliness originated in the prehistoric era around 40,000 to 50,000 years ago. Rice, 1981, argues that Venus figurines symbolize broader aspects of womanhood beyond fertility. American anthropologist Dixon, 2011, suggests they reflect evolutionary ideals of attractiveness. Journal of Anthropology. Adam, 2019, sees them as icons of fertility, beauty, and sexuality. International Journal of Gender and Women's Studies. Snitchdeller, 2021, interprets them as protective symbols tied to bodily processes. ResearchGate. Together, these studies indicate that prehistoric beauty was deeply symbolic, tied to survival, reproduction, and cultural identity. At that time, humans were already able to understand the concept, but they had not yet been able to define it in exact terms. Next, we move to a time and place where the situation and conditions greatly supported a massive transformation of that concept, namely, ancient Egypt around 5,000 years ago. But why did it have to be ancient Egypt? The massive leap in concepts of beauty in ancient Egypt can be attributed to several intertwined factors related to their culture, religion, and society evolving over time. Ancient Egyptian beauty was a symbol of divine order, Ma'at, spiritual harmony, and social status. Robbins, 1997, shows beauty reflected moral and religious ideals, especially in women's portrayal. Clem and Clem, 2001, highlight that symmetry, youth, and clear skin symbolized cosmic balance. Kemp, 2006, explains beauty as an embodiment of Ma'at, linking physical perfection with spiritual order. Tilsley, 2005, notes royal women's idealized beauty signified divine favor and political power. Together, they revealed beauty in ancient Egypt was more than looks, it was a visible expression of order, divinity, and hierarchy. In ancient Egypt, defining beauty wasn't just about personal preference or attraction. It was a complex mix of religious, social, and political purposes, designed to reflect divine order, Ma'at, reinforce social hierarchy, and legitimize power. Beauty was a tool for expressing spiritual harmony and moral ideals, showing social status and nobility, strengthening political authority, especially for royals. So, while personal grooming and cosmetics existed, the bigger purpose of beauty ideals served cultural and political gains more than just individual vanity. In that era, the concept of beauty was elaborated in a more complex way with a clear and organized purpose, to influence, control, and unify humanity in order to create a powerful civilization. Subsequently, significant changes and developments in the concept of beauty took place in ancient Greek civilization, where famous philosophers were born and lived, approximately 2,400 to 2,500 years ago. In ancient Greece, Plato saw beauty as a reflection of eternal truth, leading the soul toward wisdom and virtue. Hyland, 2008. He believed that recognizing true beauty, beyond physical form, helped individuals reach higher knowledge and moral goodness. White, 1989. Aristotle, however, grounded beauty in symmetry and order, seeing it as a quality tied to function and virtue in civic life. Crowther, 2016. For both, beauty was more than appearance, it was a moral standard. In society, this distinction between beauty and ugliness was used to define who was noble, virtuous, or worthy, shaping how people were judged and treated. As Constan, 2014, argues, these ideals often served as tools to influence behavior and uphold social hierarchies, linking physical beauty with power and moral superiority. So in ancient Greece, defining beauty helped promote social order and stability, but also guided personal moral growth. It wasn't solely for government control. Now, I jump forward to the Industrial Revolution, not because the eras in between lacked beauty standards, but because this was the moment when everything changed: politics, economics, society, culture, science, and technology, all of which began to reinforce and reshape the concept of beauty. The Industrial Revolution, which began in Britain around 1760 and gradually spread across Europe, North America, and eventually the rest of the world, marked a seismic shift in human life. It transformed agrarian societies into industrial powerhouses, and with that transformation came profound changes in how people viewed themselves and each other, including their perceptions of beauty and ugliness. The concept of beauty and ugliness during the Industrial Revolution, approximately 1760 to 1840, extending into the 19th century, was shaped by a combination of social class, media, early propaganda, cultural values, and family upbringing. During the Industrial Revolution, media and politics increasingly worked together to shape public behavior and reinforce social order through subtle forms of propaganda. As mass printing expanded, newspapers, pamphlets, advertisements, and magazines became tools to promote ideal citizens, often white, wealthy, clean, and disciplined, by glorifying narrow standards of beauty and morality. These ideals especially targeted women, equating physical beauty with virtue, modesty, and social value. In response, people, particularly the rising middle class, invested heavily in cosmetics, fashion, jewelry, and grooming to align with these ideals and improve their marriage or employment prospects. This growing obsession with appearance drove entire industries, from textiles to beauty products, while reinforcing class divisions and gender roles. Beauty became both a marketable asset and a tool of control, turning personal appearance into a reflection of one's morality, status, and economic potential. Tosh, 2008, highlights how Victorian ideals of masculinity and femininity were reinforced through media, promoting appearances tied closely to middle-class values of discipline and respectability. Meyer, 2011, further explains that beauty culture became a widespread public discourse, propagated by newspapers and magazines, fueling consumerism as individuals sought to align themselves with prevailing ideals of refinement and virtue. This propagation of beauty standards was deeply intertwined with concerns about morality and social order, as Walkowitz, 1992, discusses, showing how media narratives linked physical appearance with sexual and social danger, particularly targeting women. Fashion and beauty became political and economic tools, as Jalland, 1998, demonstrates, where clothing and adornment were not merely personal choices but expressions of class and social positioning, driving demand in the growing textile and jewelry industries. Siegel, 1997, adds that the rise of the cosmetics industry reflected broader industrial and social shifts, with beauty products serving both as symbols of status and means of social mobility. Together, these studies illustrate how propaganda through media established narrow, class-based beauty ideals that shaped consumer markets and reinforced gender roles, making appearance a form of both personal capital and social control during this transformative period. Now, I will jump directly to the era of World War II, where the concept of beauty was heavily utilized in politics as a tool for propaganda. This is not to say that World War I is unimportant, but during World War I, the concept of beauty was not used as significantly. During World War I, propaganda focused mainly on patriotism, duty, and sacrifice, using straightforward imagery like heroic soldiers and national symbols, with less emphasis on ideals of beauty. In contrast, World War II propaganda was much more sophisticated, deliberately using concepts of beauty to promote ideological messages. During World War II, beauty was not just a matter of appearance, it became a powerful tool of soft power. Hollywood, already a major force in global entertainment, was used by the U.S. government, particularly through the Office of War Information, OWI, to spread propaganda and boost public morale. Beautiful actresses like Rita Hayworth, Betty Grable, and Marlene Dietrich were turned into patriotic symbols. Their images were featured in posters, pin-ups, and films to inspire soldiers on the front lines and encourage civilians at home to support the war effort, especially through the purchase of war bonds. These women embodied the ideal American values: freedom, optimism, and resilience. Beauty was politicized to contrast American ideals against the negative depictions of enemy nations. It also played a role in redefining women's roles in society, with campaigns like Rosie the Riveter showing that women could be both strong contributors to industry and symbols of national pride. Through these means, beauty became an essential part of America's wartime messaging and identity. For instance, Clayton R. Copps and Gregory D. Black's 1987 book Hollywood Goes to War details how the U.S. government's Office of War Information collaborated with Hollywood to produce films that promoted American values and ideals. They note that the OWI advised Hollywood on the types and content of movies that would best help win the war, emphasizing the portrayal of women in roles that symbolized national pride and resilience. Additionally, the 2022 dissertation by Jamie Cafier, Acting on Behalf: The Contributions of American Actresses to the Allied Forces During World War II, explores how actresses like Rita Hayworth and Betty Grable used their fame to support the war effort. Cafier highlights their involvement in selling war bonds, entertaining troops, and serving as morale boosters, demonstrating how their public images were leveraged to embody and promote American ideals. We now live in a new era in which politics, economics, society, culture, science, and technology have all evolved through trial and error in human history. As a result, people around the world are now living within systems that have been shaped by these historical processes. We are living in an era where our perception of beauty is not just shaped, but programmed, by a complex web of social, psychological, and cultural influences. From birth, we're taught, by our parents, teachers, media, and society at large, what is considered beautiful and what is not. These ideas aren't objective truths, they're socially constructed standards that are reinforced through repetition and exposure. Much of this perception is fueled by cognitive biases, mental shortcuts our brains use to process information. One key example is confirmation bias. We tend to notice, believe, and remember information that aligns with what we already think is true. So, if we're raised to believe that certain body types, skin tones, or facial features are more beautiful, we start filtering the world through that lens, reinforcing those ideas even when they're harmful or baseless. The problem is further amplified by echo chambers, especially in the digital age. Social media platforms and algorithms feed us content similar to what we've already liked or engaged with, isolating us in bubbles of like-minded opinions and aesthetic preferences. These echo chambers distort reality, making narrow beauty standards seem universal and absolute when they are anything but. School and peer environments reinforce these biases early on, often without question. Meanwhile, media, from Hollywood to Instagram to advertising, celebrates a highly curated, often unattainable image of beauty, which becomes internalized by millions. What we often forget is that beauty standards are not fixed, they're shaped by power structures, culture, and time. What one generation or society considers beautiful, another may not. But we rarely question them because our brains are wired to prefer the familiar, and the familiar is what we've been repeatedly shown.